Hey guys, Joe Miles here with Osseo Gear. This is the Mission Whitetail podcast. We're going to be doing a deep dive into what it truly takes to kill these mature bucks. We're going to step outside the box and look at the why for gear, tactics, training, and more importantly, the mindset from over 35 years of chasing these magnificent animals all over North America. Thank you for following along and welcome to Mission Whitetail.
All right, guys, back again, Mission Whitetail podcast. We are very, very fortunate to have Adam Hayes again for part two. The plan really was to do one and done there, but we got so much information going and, didn't get through half our list because I talk too much, but
can get Kevin to shut up.
Yeah, I can't.
Yeah, I talk way too much in these.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm a mic hog. I know it. But Adam, thank you for coming on again. We'll get probably another hour out of you. And, I think what we would do now is talk more about tactics. I know Kevin's got quite a few questions and talk more really about tactics and drill down on some of that stuff. After the first one, I got quite a few messages about the moon guide, about the red moon. Got questions about some tactic stuff and how much they enjoyed, hearing the story about, just exit that out, about how, you killed that, your last 200, getting in that creek and doing that, how you did that. And so I thought maybe we could even revisit a couple more of the 200s you killed because, a guy can stumble into a 200-inch buck. A guy can stumble into one giant, in their hunting career. But for a guy like you that have killed 4 200s and actually deer that you knew about and you targeted, that's a rarity. I love to inflate your ego as much as I possibly can. Yeah. But no. And all jokes aside, I mean, that's quite a feat in the whitetail world. And so, maybe towards the end of this, we can dive into a couple more of those stories and just kind of walk through them. But let's start. Does that sound good to you?
Yeah.
Let's start with, we're about to get into early season, right? South Carolina opens August 15th. I think you guys open mid-September in Ohio. Is that right?
Last Saturday in September.
Are you going to go to Kentucky or anything early, or are you getting started that last Saturday in September?
I'm actually going to Alberta for the opener early September. So I'll be up there end of August, first, 10 days of September to try to fill my bear tag and be on a big deer for the opener there. And then I'm planning on coming home and being here for the opener because I think I got a really good chance this year on one of my farms to kill a big deer I've been watching the last few years, and he's always been consistent early season, and try to be ready for that. And I've got another deer my nephew's got his eyes on, so hoping we can get 1 or 2 of those bucks down here early and then hit the road. But yeah, I'm Canada and Ohio for September.
All right, so Canada is its own beast, but for guys that are hunting at home for their opener, let's look at what your approach is going to be on this deer that about, this in your backyard, if you will. Walk us through kind of what your strategy and plan's going to be to kill that deer early season.
Well, early, it's really all about the food and the surprise factor. These deer haven't been hunted for half a year and their guards are going to be down and they're going to be on their summer pattern still for the most part. And it's such a great opportunity to kill a big deer, with his guard down early. So it's, I do everything that I can to make sure I've got, everything that deer could possibly want as far as food goes. I've got corn planted this year for the first time, soybeans. I've got my clover and alfalfa fields established. I'm going to be putting in a couple fall food plots in, mid to late August with some pure attraction and winter peas, just to have everything kind of peaking right there for the opener. So, I mean, no matter what that deer wants, it's going to be right there, and really just, keeping an eye from a safe distance, like we talked about on the last podcast, from the observation stands to know exactly what that deer is doing. I'll be out there watching, especially on those red moon nights, to see, how he's entering the fields and what the wind's doing, and trying to have all the stands ready, and just really banking on that, that surprise attack early when they get their guard down.
So you're going to preset some stands for him.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that will be based on, I guess, with your observation stands, you're going to see where he's coming out, and then you'll wait for, midday, rainy day, whatever it is, to get in there, hang a stand for south, north wind. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm guessing that's what you're going to do.
Yeah. I mean, I like to have as many stands pre-hung as I can for different wind directions. I mean, you always got to be prepared for something changing up at the last minute, but this particular farm's pretty small, and it's, it's pretty easy to have all the, the major trails covered, but, you never know at the last minute, you might need to do a hang and hunt, for something weird that happens at the last minute.
Yeah. I did a podcast last night. I was on a guy's, and we were talking about that. And we touched on this in the last podcast as well, about the mobile hunting craze, and how guys are more, concerned about hunting over the counter tags on public ground, one stick, with their saddle setups and their hanging hunts. But man, if you have the luxury of pre-hanging stands, I mean, even in the dadgum dead of winter, if you got to go in and hang a stand, you are going to elevate your temperature. You're going to be sweating by the time you get done, and you're going to stink twice as much as if you're just able to walk in there and climb up. So, I get the mobile hunting thing, and I do it. Kevin does a lot of it too, and I guess guys that hunt a lot of public, they have to. They have to do the hang and hunt because they can't leave their stands up. But man, if you have the luxury of pre-hanging stands, that's a huge feather in your cap.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're not doing that, I mean, there's certain places where I know I'm going to be hunting, and to not have that spot ready a couple months in advance is just lazy. I mean, you got to do it.
Yeah. Now, when you access these, now let's that kind of walk, you're going to have cameras out, you're going to be doing observations, you're going to have preset stands, you're going to have a mobile setup ready to go in case something weird. You're going to have all your I's dotted and your T's crossed, ready to go for that deer. When you go to hunt him, are you an e-bike guy? Are you a walk-in guy? Are you ride the tractor around the property? What's your favorite thing to do to get in properties in general?
All the above.
All the above.
Yeah. I've actually got, a quiet cat that I use a lot early season, especially like when you're talking about it being really hot, because it's nothing worse than getting all sweated up, getting into your stand early season when it's warm out. So take full advantage of my quiet cat. And then I've also got an electric Ranger that I use quite a bit, on some of the bigger farms.
Yep.
Here at my house, I'm not opposed to having the wife drop me off, using the tractor or the Ranger to get in and out of spots. But I'm a big advocate of the electric bikes and the Rangers for sure.
Yeah, you remember Mark Wimpy, the guy that was on Matthews Dominant Bucks with us on his farm. He used to, before the season, he would have somebody or himself, 30 minutes before daylight, and at 3:00 in the afternoon, when it got close to hunting season, he would drive his tractor around the property every day, the perimeter, to let them get used to it. And then he would actually get in the bucket of the tractor and have somebody drive him around and drop him off. I mean, that's kind of extreme, but man, they get used to that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, they sure do.
Yeah. All right. So all the above on that's on getting in and out. What about, all right, let's shift. All right. You killed your buck at home and you're getting ready to go to Kansas. What's your approach there?
Well, I'll be hunting Kansas and Illinois this year, and really, it's mainly about the cameras and what the cameras are telling me, because they're going to be farms that I'm familiar with. We've got a lot of food plots in Illinois, got some specific deer that we got an eyeball on and have stands pre-hung for there as well. And it's really all going to be about monitoring the cameras and seeing what's showing up. And, whether it's at home or out of state, I probably do something a little different than most guys with these cameras, especially the cell cameras, because I'll do my scouting, obviously, to find where I need to be or where I think I need to be to kill a deer. And then I'll actually have my cameras set up right on those trails, right by my tree stands, because if that deer makes a mistake during daylight by one of my tree stands, I want to know it. I want to know when he's coming through there, or if he's coming through there in the middle of the night. And you can watch a lot of times as those moon times get better and closer to daylight, that those deer start moving closer to daylight. So you're able to keep tabs on them that way and almost be able to predict, when they're going to show up during daylight and make that mistake. But I like to have my cameras, right on those trails, right by my tree stand, so I know when they're coming through there. And like I said, keep track on when they end up finally making a mistake during daylight. And that big deer we talked about that I killed in Kansas was a perfect example. That buck was showing up on camera in the middle of the night, but he kept getting closer and closer and closer to daylight, and went out there on the red moon and ended up killing him that week. But that's a key for me, is knowing when those bucks are making a mistake during daylight. And it's hard to do that when you're hundreds of thousands of miles away. So the cell cameras are critical for that in season, real-time intel.
Yeah, it's a good point, because I do the same thing, and you hear a lot of guys really bash putting your cameras in where you're going to be hunting. They're like, your cameras need to be out way away from where you're hunting. You just need to know that the deer is there. And I could not disagree. I disagree with that 100%.
Me too.
You hear guys say, oh, they feel the vibes from the radio waves or whatever. And man, I just have not seen that. Now I get it. You're not going to get every buck on camera, but I have absolutely put cameras around my stands, on the scrape that I'm going to try to shoot him off of. And we'll stack them in around where I'm hunting. I agree with that 100%. And that is something that you do hear some guys that, knock down some darn good deer, and they're like, keep the cameras out of the core areas, the areas you're going to hunt. It spooks them off. I have not seen that.
I haven't either. And I've heard guys talk about it. I mean, what's the point in having a camera out if you already know that deer is on the farm? I mean, you run your cameras to get, a count or, see what's running on the farm. But once you know they're there and you're hunting them, why wouldn't you have those cameras set up somewhere where you're going to kill that deer, so you can monitor what that deer is doing and when he's doing it during daylight, so you can capitalize on it?
Yeah. I mean, they say the buck could be camera shy. He sees the camera, he relocates. Man, I have never seen that. I've had them stay in the distance, and you see them, or they may see a camera, but I know Joel Snow used to talk about that. There was like a big 170 he was hunting, and, he had a Reconyx that was hidden up in some corn, and the buck saw it at 40 yards and he never saw the deer again. His last picture he got was the buck turning around and running away from the camera. So I guess it can happen, but
yeah, I'm sure it happens. But, I use multiple cameras a lot more. That video clip I just sent you before we got started, I had two cameras set up, in spitting distance from each other. And that buck came right by the one, and you can see the flash in the background from the other camera. And, if I would have only had the other camera out, I would have never got the video of that deer. So I use multiple cameras a lot of times, because sometimes you miss them. you know?
Yeah.
And if you think a buck's picking up on your camera, then maybe you need to move your camera off the trail a little bit, or elevate them, which I've done in the past, get them up above, that deer's line of sight, or just back them way up. Me and Chris Seymour talked about this recently, how a lot of times he will set a camera up on video, which I use video more than I do still images anymore, and set it off at a distance, 20 or 30 yards away from that trail. And you'll be surprised how much more, activity you'll pick up on that camera. And a lot of times those bucks, just be off to one side or the other where you wouldn't have got a picture of him. But when that camera's on video, it can tell you a lot, especially travel direction and a lot more images of those bucks you might have been missing.
And, we did a test earlier, a cell cam test. It is amazing how far those things trigger now. I had one of the Spartans. It was triggering at 90 feet in the dark.
Wow.
I was able to get it to trigger at 90 feet in the dark. I mean, that, most guys are putting it, 20 feet, but you can get that thing 50 feet, 60 feet away now. The technology has come so far. And the other ones we were testing were triggering out a good ways too. So it wasn't just the Spartan, it was all three brands that we were testing. The range was really good. So yeah, you can back them off the trails. But not to beat that horse too much, but trail cameras are huge in what I do as well. And I will put them right in, especially with the cell cams, so you're not having to walk in and out all the time.
Yep. Yeah.
All right. Kevin's got some questions for you, and he has not uttered a word yet. I can tell he is.
I'm itching.
Yeah, he is itching. That's right.
I'm boiling up at the top.
He's itching. I don't really want to know where he's itching, but he is itching.
I don't either.
You scoot over a little further. I'm giving him the list now, and he's going to really drill you down. Hayes, get ready.
All right.
While we're on the topic of trail cameras. Yeah, get stretched out. I asked Chris this. Do you use any historical pictures to kind of plan on when maybe pre-rut or something, when a buck's going to show up on one of your properties? If within 10 days, have you seen any pattern like that where, they'll show up every, within 10 days of each year?
I've heard a lot of guys talk about that, where they'll see a buck do something, exactly 1 year later in the same spot. I don't know if I've ever witnessed that. But obviously, hunting the farms that I hunt for years on end, you tend to see, deer do the same things year after year in the same locations. But, a lot of my tactics kind of revolve around what I've seen these deer do in previous years, but actually right down to the very date, I don't think I've ever witnessed that. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. I was just wondering, because I've heard guys say the same thing. As far as the mobile hunting, how much of I know you're a big proponent of the bump and dump. How much of that tactic have you used in the past, and how successful have you been using it? Because I've heard a guy saying you'd never want to, bump a big deer, he'll never show back up, and then we got guys like you're excited when you bump them.
Actually, that's Andre's tactic, and I would love, I would love to be in a position where I could actually try that. But honestly, I have not been able to do that yet. And I wouldn't be afraid to do it either. I mean, the way that Andre approaches that, and the talks that I've had with him about, mature deer and how they react to pressure, and, how he uses the wind to make sure that those deer, they might hear him, they might see him, but he never lets them smell him because he's always scouting with the wind in his face. I mean, that tactic, I've seen him do it successfully, and I wouldn't hesitate to do it. I've just never been in a position where I could actually try it.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I think if you look, I guess the properties Andre hunts, you know, and the big leases and places he had. I mean, how many of the bump and dumps? I mean, you know him way better than I do, Adam. How many of those did he do on, you know, small 50-acre tracts? I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
most of those were on big properties, right?
He's on bigger properties than me on the average for sure.
Yeah. And you know, I've never done it on a big deer. I've never, you know, I don't know that I probably would try it as a last resort.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if look, he's just nocturnal. I know right where he's bedded and I can't get him out there. You know, maybe I take a couple of my French bulldogs and let them run him out of there, because they're not going to run him very far, and then get in there and try and kill him. But yeah, you know, I think it is a tactic and something that under the right circumstances, guys could pull it off.
You know, season is so short to begin with, and the last thing I want to do is spend time in the wrong spot during season. You know, and if you know there's a big deer in the area and you can't find him, you know, and it's October, you know, you got two choices. You can climb up in your stand and hope that he's going to show up, or you can get down and do some scouting. And, you know, I would much rather get down and do some scouting and find some fresh sign and take a chance on finding that deer and actually bumping him than wasting, you know, days or weeks of my season. I mean, that time's so valuable. And I think that, you know, that would be a great way for a guy to locate a buck that maybe, you know, you don't know where he's at. You know, keep the wind in your face and cover some ground, because those deer are leaving fresh sign behind. So I wouldn't waste a lot of your season, you know, hoping that buck's going to show up. If you know he's there, but you just can't find him, you know, get down and burn some shoe leather and, you know, keep the wind in your face and look for some fresh sign. And if you end up bumping him, it's not the worst thing in the world. At least you know he's there. It's better than being in the wrong spot, you know, for a month of the season.
Yeah. And again, you know, I think a lot of it goes to your particular setup, you know, what you've got. You know, if you've got a 40-acre funnel, you know, and he's not betting on you, you're just hoping that he comes through there, then I mean you're stuck with what you've got.
Yeah.
You know, but if you've got a big property, or you know, you've got a lease or whatever, and there's bedding and all that on there, then yeah, get down, you know, make a move. You know, I agree with that. I hunt like that. You know, you talk to somebody like Don Higgins, and he is absolutely anti. He's hunting the edges only. He's not getting into this core area. But now what we've got to remember is he has a world-class farm that is set up, and he has the deer manipulated with edges and even fencing, so they have to go certain ways. And it is the Disney World of farms. I went out and saw it this year, and so yeah, I get that. You know, I think most people would hunt that property like that, but you know, if you get into something, you know, different, you've got to get in to where they are, or it's a hope and a prayer, and you know, you're gonna run out of time.
Yeah, it's all relative. I mean, if you've got your farm set up to where, you know, every spot that they're going to come through, you've got to stand, and all you got to do is sit back and wait and watch for them to come through. That's completely different than, you know, a 400-acre farm where, you know, the deer can go anywhere and do anything. And it's a matter of, you know, catching them, making a mistake, as opposed to, you know, diving into a pre-hung stand on a fence crossing where they've got to go through there. So,
yeah. I mean, I think we all would agree that the less pressure you can put on them, the better.
yeah.
You know, for sure. But also with the aggressive side of it, you've got to get in there and kill them.
Yeah.
Segueing onto the in-season scouting, Adam, when you know, say you get down and you're looking for a sign middle of the day, is there any sign that you like to key in on like scrapes or rubs or, beds, or is it just like a culmination of all that you kind of find where it all comes together and that's what you hunt over?
If there's one thing in season that really gets me excited, it's finding big rubs, and especially, a rub line or clusters of big rubs. And I'm talking about, rubs that are the size of your leg or maybe Joe's leg.
Yeah, I think we mentioned that one.
Which leg are we talking about?
Yeah, there we go.
This is deja vu.
Yeah, wait a minute.
Are we talking about the little sapling or
Big rubs, man.
big?
The
Oh,
big
sorry.
rubs.
I'm back on track.
And do you do any kind of call-in or anything like that?
Yeah, not as much as I used to. It doesn't seem like it works as good as it used to, especially at home. I mean, I don't go anywhere, without my grunt call and my snort wheeze, but it seems like the snort wheeze is what I've had my best luck with. And I do some rattling, but I don't do much blind rattling because I've just seen too many big deer, work that whole deal. I mean, you've got to be set up in a spot where a buck either can't get downwind of you, or you're set up in an area where he's forced to come into bow range to try to get downwind of you, because they'll just like calling coyotes, man. They'll circle around your downwind side, and it's tough anymore to call deer in. But I put a lot of thought and effort into my setups if I'm going to be calling, because I think that's probably the key to successful setup when, calling deer is just in a spot where they can't get downwind of you, because more times than not, they're probably going to bust you doing it because they're just onto it. So
Have you rattled in and killed a 5.5-year-old buck or older?
it's a good question.
I never have.
I know I rattled in a big deer in Kansas. It wasn't the best scoring deer, but that big bully buck, that 6-point frame with all those stickers. Yeah.
Yep.
That deer I'm sure that deer was 5 or 6 years old. And I got within, earshot of where I thought that buck was bedded from the day before when I saw him, and just did some light tickling. And that's, when it comes to rattling, I'd prefer to do some really light rattling. I want that deer to think that there's some young deer up and moving already in his area. Just a couple young bucks kind of feeling each other out, and as opposed to two deer trying to kill each other. Because I want that buck to feel comfortable, and just to think there's a couple young bucks up already moving and in his area. So he's going to get up and investigate instead of, flying in, trying to kick somebody's butt. I haven't seen that as much as I have seen, the light rattling work seems to work really well for me.
So when you're if you do want to rattle, you're set up, you're kind of like up against a thicket or something, so they can't get downwindy. Is that what you're saying? So they gotta, or something thick, they gotta be in range to actually, so you're seeing them, they're already in range.
Yeah, I mean, if you can back up to, a road or, a house or, a big body of water, something that they can't get downwind of you, or you back up to some type of pinch point that forces them into bow range.
I gotcha. So what's your scent control regiment like? I know some guys go really crazy and buy a complete different, set of washer and dryer, and some guys just wear the same stuff all year and go out in the field, and both types are successful. What kind of guy are you, I guess?
I probably go overboard, lean more towards going overboard with it. It used to be that if something touched my skin, well, still, if clothing touches my skin, I don't wear it more than once. but it used to be that way with everything, you know, with jackets and all that. But now with the Ozonics locker, where you can throw your jackets and your outer garments into that locker and dry wash it, I don't feel the need to have to wash that stuff every day. But if it's something that goes right up against my skin, it's getting wore one time and going in the wash machine after that. But I mean, I keep everything as clean as I possibly can. Everything goes right into, you know, a bag and doesn't come out until I'm in the field. And I keep myself as clean as possible. And then I use the Ozonics, just like I kind of think of it as my, you know, my alarm on my house. You know, you lock your doors and windows and you do everything to secure your home at night, and then you turn that alarm on, just kind of like an umbrella to cover everything. And that's kind of how I look at that Ozonics. If you're as clean as you can possibly be, your body, your clothing, your equipment, and you've brought that scent level down to as low as it can possibly be, and then you using the Ozonics over top of all that, I think you're about as bulletproof as you can be. And then if you add, I like to add an attractant, some kind of lure on top of that in the area where I'm at, just to get that deer smell around me when I'm in my stand. That's my regimen.
That's exactly what I was just about to ask you. Do you like to use any kind of mock scrapes and scent attractants or anything like that?
Yeah. Just about every time, 99.9% of the time, I've either got a mock scrape close by that's got scent in it. I really like to use a calming scent, which is nothing more than an attractant that smells like deer. And I use it in a little, bottle with a mister, so you can put it right into the air and just get that, scent in the area. But yeah, I'm always using something. And the last 3 or 4 years, we've been working with the guys from Raw Frozen Scents. And I actually went to their farm in Pennsylvania, and these guys have got the most extensive deer operation I've ever seen. I think they've got close to 1,000 deer. And I mean, everything that they have is right from the deer, it's as real as it gets. And having a quality product like that, and having that, that smell in and around your setup, I think it only increases your chances.
Let's back up for just a minute. Not to jump on you, but I think this will be interesting to some guys. When you talk about human scent and trying to eliminate it, my first thought about that is, why would you not do it? Either you don't have time or you're lazy. Those would be the only two reasons not to try to minimize. Because I talked with some bloodhound guys, and the bloodhounds, as well as the deer, when they smell whatever it is that they're smelling, they have to make a decision, right? They have to make a decision. Okay, that's enough of a smell that I've got to get the hell out of here. Or it's as little of a smell that I'm okay continuing to go. And the more you can minimize that, your human odor, you need to do it. I mean, there's, again, either you don't have time or you're lazy, one of the two. And then the old thing I always go back to is, it's in the rut, you've got a quarter in the wind, here comes a yearling doe, and she's got a 200 behind her, right? And all you have to do is get her past you, and you're going to be able to kill him. It's worth it to continually work on your scent control for that one incident.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I wanted to throw that in there, because I agree 100%. You've got to pay full on attention and minimize your scent. I mean, I've talked to guys that quit eating meat 90 days before the season started. I don't know if that really, I don't know if that really works or not. I need to find like some kind of human scent biologist or doctor and get him on here and tell us about human odor. And maybe that's something we'll look into doing. But, everything you can do in your power for scent control.
I definitely believe that the most of your scent that you give off is through your mouth, and your breath.
Yep.
and that I do everything I can to keep my mouth as clean as possible and covering my mouth and my nose, maybe not 100% of the time when I'm in the stand, but when it gets to prime time, I've got something, that's filtering my breath and bringing down that level, of odor I'm putting off from my breath. But, and like I said, I like to take things to the next level because you do everything you can to, like you said, to bring your scent down as low as possible. But I think then adding, those natural smells of deer, not only are you eliminating your scent and bringing it down really low, but you're adding something to the equation where deer might not smell you or might get a little whiff of you, but they're also getting a big whiff of something that smells like deer, which is going to, make them calm, make them at ease, maybe, give them that extra little nudge they need to come out into the field or do their thing. But yeah, I definitely like to use a attractant, or like I said, mock scrape close by, something on a trail where, it's going to get a buck's attention if he's coming through and keep it off of, catching me in the tree, making a move, trying to draw or get my camera on him. But yeah, I'm always got something out.
Yeah. All right, let's get into some particular deer. Walk us through your second 200 and kind of what your tactic was, how you found him. I know there's some old footage and stuff out there, of that hunt, but walk us through that from when you found him and how you ended up killing him.
Yeah, that was a deer that I'd spotted on a farm or right next to one of the farms I hunted. And it took me 3 years to kill that deer. That deer had a big range. I found one of his sheds close to 1.5 miles away from with a farm where I actually killed him at. My dog actually found that shed. I didn't. I can't take credit for it, but I put her in the right spot to find it. But yeah, that deer, he completely vanished the second year I hunted him. I don't know where that deer went. I have an idea, but and that's happened to me on more than one occasion, hunting a big deer multiple years. There's certain deer that, they're gone, and I thought that deer was dead, and I don't know exactly where he went, but for the entire season, never laid eyes on him, held out for that deer all year, and didn't know what had happened to him. And then he showed back up the next year. I think a lot of times, it's probably a younger buck, but a more aggressive deer probably runs them off, and they just don't want to deal with it the older that they get, kind of like you and me.
Yeah, Kevin. Yeah, if it was a young doe running around here, I'd just let him have at her.
Yeah.
Start pawing the ground.
Yeah, I'm gone. Yeah, I'm relocating.
Yeah.
I'm moving to the beach.
The third year I hunted that deer, I got a ton of video of that buck in the summer because I had my observation stand set up on that farm. We had late beans, so the beans were still green. Early season that kept him right there. Had good acorns on that farm, so there was no reason for him to go. And I basically I watched that deer all summer, but it was funny that of the dozen times I was able to see that buck, I think there were only 2 nights where I actually got really good video of that deer, and that was one of the first. I think that was one of the first years I was filming for a TV show, and I desperately wanted to get some footage of that buck for the show. And the only nights that buck showed up in that field in camera light was on the red moon. And I kind of predicted that and told a couple of my buddies those were the nights I was going to get film of him. And he was out, an hour before dark. And, a lot of guys talk about that moon and it doesn't affect anything, or they do pay attention to it, but only during season. And I'll tell you what, in the summer, when you're trying to get a look at a big deer or try to get, footage of a big deer, those nights with the red moon are just gold in the summertime. Really is. and we were talking about, summer scouting, going out of state on trips. Anytime I'm going to travel, hundreds or 1,000 miles from home to do some scouting in the summer, I guarantee you it's going to be on those red moon days.
Yep.
Because big deer feel safe and secure in the summer, and they're out in the fields and they're more relaxed. But I tell you what, as soon as you pull off the side of the road, they're gone. They don't like to be seen. Those big deer still don't like to be, seen in the summer, and they're not out there every night, especially the big ones. So you got to do everything to stack the deck in your favor to get a look at them, and that helps tremendously in the summer. But that's what I did with that buck all summer long. I watched that buck. I knew the trails he was using, the wind he was using coming in and out, and it was just a matter of I actually hunted out of a couple of those observation stands during season, just waiting for that right wind. And I finally got a trail camera picture of that buck one morning, and I knew that he was close by, and dove in that night and killed him on the red moon with a really good wind. So it was really a textbook season and a textbook hunt. But it took 3 years to kill that deer. It just was a hard deer to hunt.
It finally all added up and came together.
Yep.
Adam, what did your setup look like when you dove in? Did you get on the field edge? Did you get inside the timber a little bit?
Well, really, that's one of the reasons why it was so hard to kill that deer, is because I couldn't get into the timber. I'm basically hunting, had permission for the field and the field edges, and it was pretty much an evening deal. I couldn't get back into the timber and hunt that deer around his bed. So it was, just waiting for the right evening for that buck to come out and make a mistake in daylight. But it was strictly field edge hunting.
But you killed him early. I mean, you killed him September, October.
No, it was third week of October.
Third week October. Okay.
Yeah. Still on a pretty strict feeding pattern, doing the regular thing he'd been doing pretty much all summer.
Gotcha. All right, let's go. And hopefully this is not the same deer. The hardest buck you've ever hunted, what he was doing, and how you ended up killing him. Hopefully it's not the same deer.
No, that probably would have been the moose buck. That was that would have been my fifth 200, but he busted off a third main beam right before I killed him. And I looked everywhere for that, couldn't find it. But I hunted that deer for, actually hunted him for 2 years. I knew about him for 3 years. It took me a year to get permission to hunt him, but I'd found I got a hot tip from a guy that I worked with that saw a big deer, and I was able to get permission to go in and shed hunt. I found one of his sheds, but I couldn't get permission to hunt for an entire year. And when I finally did get in there the first year, I really didn't know a whole lot about this buck. It was a city deer, and that deer, I ended up finding out that that deer bounced around to like 5 different spots. He was going from, an industrial park to a little woodlot behind an industrial park, going behind an apartment complex to another little tiny woodlot, crossing a road, going across a golf course to a little patch of timber next to the freeway, and crossing another road, living in a little patch behind a retirement home. I mean, that deer had 4 or 5 little spots that he lived in, and there was no rhyme or reason as to where he was at and when he was there and why. But he just bounced around. And I wish to God I would have had that deer aged when I killed him, because I bet you that deer was 9 or 10 years old.
Did you have cameras in all those spots, or how did you figure out?
I did, and believe it or not, I was trying to find this picture before we got started, because the first year I was able to hunt that deer was the first year of the trail camera, the cellular trail camera.
Okay.
Smart Scouter. You remember the Smart Scouter?
The Quiet Cat guys, right?
Yep. They sent me one of their cameras to try it out, and I put it in there, and Justin Roach, one of the brothers, calls me up and he's like, have you looked at your phone? There's a giant on your cell camera right now. And this was the very first picture
Oh my gosh.
I got of that buck.
Wow.
Very first picture from a cell camera.
That's
And
really cool.
Here's the next one.
My goodness.
So yeah, I had one cell camera in there, but it was just in that one spot. And like I said, he had 4 other spots that he was living in. And I bounced around and trying to catch up to that deer the first year. Just I never even got a whiff of him. Never saw him in the daylight. Never got my eyes on him. I had pictures of him, but did a lot of scouting that late season, trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together. And the next year, I had a stand in this little tiny spot. It was like 6 acres, right up next to the road. And I had put mineral sites in on all these spots where he was living and had cameras on those mineral spots, trying to keep tabs of him and when he was in there. And there's basically no food, This deer is living on acorns and browse. I mean, no crops whatsoever. But I was really able to keep track of that deer on these mineral sites. And I had, believe it or not, I had pictures of this buck on that cell camera on this other spot in the middle of the night. It's like he's in there. I'm thinking it was right at the end of October, early November. I was thinking he was in there checking does. So my plan, and the wind was wrong. So I was planning on going over there in the morning. The wind was supposed to change midday. And I was just kind of waiting and watching the wind. And I'm sitting there and I got a picture of him on my cell cam, but it was on the spot 2 miles away. That deer had moved early morning to a different spot. And the other spot that he was in, I knew he was not leaving that spot during the daylight. He was going to have to cross a road. I knew he was going to be staying there. So I dove in there midday right after I got his picture and ended up killing him that night. And, he came in checking that mineral site because it was almost like he was checking those mineral sites because the does would always come to those minerals. And it was almost like, I don't want to say it was a scrape, but it was almost like he would check the mineral sites looking for a hot doe coming in heat. And I really think that's what he was doing. And he was just in there bouncing around, pushing does around, came in, checked that mineral site and killed him. And yeah, that was a tough animal. A lot of guys say them city deer are easy to kill, but that deer was, man. And that was the first time I saw that deer on the hoof.
First time you saw him.
2.5, 3 years.
I mean, it had to be ultra frustrating. I mean, the whole time you were hunting him.
Yeah, I mean, because just couldn't go anywhere to glass that deer because he's not, out in a cornfield or a bean field. That deer, like I said, was living on browse, living on acorns, and there was just no rhyme or reason as to where he would be on any given day. He would just, be in one spot one day and a mile away the next and just bounced around. It's probably why that deer got to be so old, because he wasn't
unpredictable
consistent with anything. And just, man, that was the sneakiest animal ever.
And, from a mental standpoint, I mean, staying in the game and just saying, you know what, I'm going to go shoot this 150 this coming in every day. I mean, the mental side of it, staying in the game and getting it done. I mean, that's not easy for guys to do.
Yeah, it's tough, but I mean, it's easier when they're there and when the trap is set and you've got everything ready. And like with that deer, the spot where I ended up killing him, my stand was like 10 yards inside the woods. It was set up so that, with a west wind, I basically walked 10 yards into this thicket, got up in my tree. The mineral site was right there. I was able to get in when I had to add mineral or to check that camera without disturbing anything. I mean, it was literally, in and up a tree and not disturbing anything. And that's tough when you're in that tight of a spot.
Mm-hmm.
So the setup was perfect. And that's crucial with these big deer. And, when he's there and you've done your homework and you're set up, and you've got, you've done the work that you're going to be in the right spot to kill him when he comes through. Makes a huge difference.
Yes. Stay the course. Trust your plan. Trust, how the setup is set, and stay the course. And, if the goal, we talk about that a lot, what your goal is. If your goal is to shoot the 190, the 200, if you shoot the 150, you're not going to get him.
Nope. Can't shoot a 200 if you shoot the first 150 that comes through.
Nope. And that's hard for guys to do. I mean, it's hard. I mean, especially, us in the South where a 150 is just kind of unheard of, right? I mean, you just don't, we don't get an opportunity at deer like that. And we go out to Kansas, Illinois, and, a 140, is a hammer. But you can switch that. And I mean, there's bucks here. Adam always picks on me about these South Carolina swamp bucks, but they're bucks here that are, I mean, they'll give you all you want as far as the cat and mouse game, because our properties down here are so vast, cutovers and huge blocks of woods. And, there's no necessarily funnel, they can bed anywhere. So it is a mental game a lot of the time. And you have to, I mean, this may sound kumbaya-ish, but having a good support team of guys that, are doing the same thing you are, that, is going through the grind that you can talk with at night or bounce things off of. I mean, that's always been real healthy for me.
Yep. I agree 100%. And don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say that a 200-inch deer in Ohio is any smarter than a 140 in South Carolina. It's all relative.
Absolutely.
It's all relative. But I guess the point I was trying to make is when you've set your sights on a specific deer, you're not going to kill that deer if you shoot the first nice buck that comes through. So it's all about, setting that goal in your mind and sticking to it and
the
not
mental
selling for anything less.
Yep. That's right. All right. So, man, once again, appreciate it. This hour has flown by. Tons of info, good, really good tactics. Some stuff that's outside the box, and again, got a lot of really good feedback from the last time, the last one we did. I'm sure this will be the same. And guys, if you're out there listening to this or watching it on YouTube, if you've got any questions or anything, feel free to reach out. We're always talking deer, and that's always, especially now that we're getting in, close to August, it's getting to be that, I guess, pre-rut for us, if you will. Adam, man, thank you so much for coming on again, and good luck to you this season. I know we'll be talking throughout the year, and I'm looking forward to the year.
Thanks for having me, and hopefully there's something in here or last week that will help somebody. And if anybody's got any questions about anything we talked about, or the Moon Guide app, they can always email me at info@moonguide.com. So
yep, and
might not get to you right away, but I get back to everybody. So
moonguide.com, that's your website. Again, Team 200 is the show on the Pursuit channel, and Waypoint. I guess a lot of the older episodes are on Waypoint. Is that right? Yep.
All of our seasons are on Waypoint.
And we definitely look forward to seeing you in the Osseo camo this year. God, that beautiful face of yours is going to look good. I cannot wait to see it.
Can't wait, man. I'm going to get that Osseo bloody this fall.
Ooh, yeah. With your fifth 200, you're just going to roll around on him in that Osseo gear.
Oh, yeah. Yep. That happens. You can bank on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, cool, man. Well, thanks again. Have a good weekend, and I'll holler at you soon.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Thanks, Adam.
Appreciate it.